The wind howled across the licorice hills, tugging at peppermint leaves and ruffling the sugar crystal grass. Far beyond the sleepy marshmallow meadows, where dreams curled like ribbons in the night, the Jellybean Castle shimmered under the moon's silvery gaze. Its towers, tall and twisty, sparkled with every color the eye could imagine: grape, purple, lemon yellow, strawberry red, and even stranger ones, like cloudberry blue and tangerine dusk. A caramel drawbridge creaked open with a slow, sticky sigh. Though no one was there to pass through, the Jellybean guards stood perfectly still, smiling in their candy glass armor, as if caught mid-laughter by a passing breeze. Deep inside the castle, through licorice corridors and under marshmallow chandeliers, something stirred. Not loudly, not even fully awake. Just the tiniest flutter, like the hush of wings brushing against velvet curtains. In the great hall, where gummy chandeliers swayed gently above a floor made of sparkling sugar tiles, a single jellybean rolled free from a silver bowl. It pattered across the floor, then stopped. Midnight had come, and with it, the castle began to change. It was not the loud change of clanking gears or flashing lights. No, this was the quiet magic, the kind that tiptoes in when the world is asleep. The jellybean murals along the walls began to ripple, as if breathing. The stained glass windows glowed softly, each showing a different dream. And from the tall tower at the castle's heart, a soft humming rose like a lullaby sung by the stars. Outside, nestled under a toffee bush and wrapped in a patchwork cloak, a small figure blinked. She had been waiting, watching. And now, as the moonlight touched her fingertips, she rose quietly and stepped toward the castle's glowing gates. Her name was Mira, and she had never been this close before. Tonight, everything was about to change. Mira's feet made no sound as they touched the sugar-dusted path. Each step was careful, not from fear, but wonder. The closer she came, the more the castle revealed itself. The peppermint vines that curled along the stone walls shimmered faintly, glowing with a light of their own. The caramel drawbridge, which moments ago creaked open on its own, now waited silently, as if expecting her. She reached out and placed one small hand on the edge of the bridge. It was warm, as though it had soaked up sunlight all day, even though the moon hung high above. The moment her fingers brushed its surface, a soft ripple passed through the candy bricks, and a quiet chime rang through the night. Mira stepped forward. Inside, the air smelled of strawberries and warm chocolate, with a hint of something cooler like peppermint on a winter breeze. The walls glistened with tiny crystals, catching the moonlight and scattering it like a dream. It wasn't like anything she'd ever seen, not even in the bedtime tales her grandmother used to whisper when the stars blinked outside her window. But Mira hadn't come just to look. She had heard the stories, yes, but she had also seen the signs. For 3 nights in a row, the moon had changed color, first gold, then violet, then sugar pink. Her dreams had been filled with laughter that wasn't hers, of colors that danced and whispered. She had awoken each time with the taste of jelly beans on her tongue and the sense that something was calling her. And now, here she was. She passed the gummy chandeliers, marveling at their gentle swing. They made no sound, yet she could almost hear music soft, inviting, as if the castle was humming its own lullaby. She walked through a hallway shaped like a candy cane tunnel, and her hand brushed the walls, which pulsed gently beneath her fingertips. It felt like the castle had a heartbeat. Then, she saw it. A jelly bean, lying perfectly in the middle of the next chamber, not part of a pile, not dropped by mistake. It was red with swirls of silver, and it sparkled with a light that came from within. Mira paused, then bent to pick it up. The moment her fingers closed around it, the floor beneath her shimmered and then lifted. A soft whoosh of air surrounded her as she rose into the ceiling on a hidden platform of spun sugar. She didn't panic. Something about the magic here felt safe, like being wrapped in a warm blanket on a rainy day. As the lift rose higher and higher, she could see more of the castle candy corn lanterns glowing gently, rivers of fizzy lemonade winding through glassy channels, and jellybean creatures going about their nighttime business. There were more of them than she expected, tiny beings made entirely of candy. One, with gumdrop buttons and licorice arms, scurried by with a scroll as long as a scarf. Another, shaped like a melting marshmallow, floated gently through the air, smiling as it passed. They didn't seem surprised to see her. In fact, they barely looked at her at all. That was when Mira realized something odd. Though the castle was clearly awake, it also felt quiet. Not empty exactly, but still. As though it had been waiting too long for something or someone. The sugar lift came to a gentle stop at a balcony high in the tallest tower. Mira stepped off, her heart fluttering. Before her stood a set of doors tall, glittering, and edged in golden taffy. They opened soundlessly as she approached. Inside the tower room, the walls were covered in glowing tapestries made of sugar thread, each one showing a different story. One showed a jellybean dragon curled around a mountain of rock candy. Another showed a little boy standing on a bridge of taffy, holding a heart-shaped lantern. And one, Mira noticed, showed a girl with short, dark hair and wide eyes, standing beneath the moon. She was holding a red jellybean with silver swirls. It was her. Mira stepped closer, hand trembling. As she did, the tapestry shimmered and came to life. The girl in the image looked up at her and nodded slowly. Behind the girl, in the woven threads of the tapestry, the Jellybean Castle began to crumble, turning to dust, as if time itself were fading away. A soft voice, not words, but a feeling tugged gently at Mira's thoughts. It was as if the castle itself was trying to speak, not with sound, but through memory and magic. She could feel what it wanted her to know. Long ago, the Jellybean Castle had been full of joy. Children came from far away, not with maps or doors, but through dreams and laughter. The candy creatures would play and dance, and the castle would shine. But as time passed, the children stopped dreaming of jellybeans. They stopped believing. The castle had grown quiet, faded, until one night, a child who still believed came close enough to see it again, to feel it. Mira. But she had not come only to visit. The castle had chosen her. The silver swirl jellybean in her hand began to glow, and Mira felt a warmth spread through her chest. The castle's magic, dim for so long, was waking. But it needed help. It needed her. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Far below, a crack split open in the sugar tile floor of the great hall. Sticky darkness oozed from beneath it, thick, bitter, and sharp-smelling, like burned licorice. From the shadows came figures, gummy creatures twisted into strange shapes. Their eyes were cold, their smiles cruel. Mira turned and saw the tapestries fading. The light in the candy lanterns blinked uncertainly. The humming had stopped. The castle was afraid. She rushed down spiral stairs that melted into view before her. Her legs moved fast, but her thoughts raced faster. What was that darkness? Why was it here now? As she reached the great hall, she saw the candy creatures scattered, some frozen in fear, others trying to hold the crack shut with their tiny hands. But the darkness kept seeping, curling like smoke, swallowing color and warmth. And then Mira saw him, a boy no older than her standing just outside the drawbridge. He wore a cloak of dark chocolate, and his eyes glowed with orange fire. He wasn't angry. He looked lonely, lost, and in his hand was a jelly bean too, but black as night and swirling with shadows. Mira stepped forward, clutching her own jelly bean tight. The boy looked at her, then, without a word, turned and vanished into the crack, pulling the darkness with him. The hall grew still again, but the crack remained. The castle's magic flickered, and Mira knew this wasn't over. Not yet. The silence in the great hall was sharp, as if the very air held its breath. Mira stood still, the silver-swirled jellybean clutched tightly in her palm, warm and glowing against her skin. Around her, the sugar tiles had dulled, and the sweet scent of the castle was fading, replaced by the bitter tang of scorched licorice and something colder like forgotten dreams. The crack in the floor pulsed faintly, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. From its center, a faint wind curled upward, whispering with voices too soft to understand. Mira's heart beat faster. The boy in the chocolate cloak, who was he? Why had he come only to disappear into the darkness? She stepped closer to the crack. The jelly bean in her hand pulsed with light, and the shadows shrank back slightly. The castle seemed to lean toward her, as if hoping, waiting. Then Mira understood the darkness wasn't just a thing. It was a feeling. A deep sadness. A hollow emptiness made real. The castle wasn't being attacked, it was being forgotten. She knelt beside the crack and closed her eyes. In the quiet of her thoughts, she reached out not with words, but with feeling. She remembered the stories her grandmother told her about light that glowed even in shadows, about laughter that healed, about believing in something even when no one else did. And then, she leapt. Without thinking, Mira stepped into the crack. The world tipped. The sugar tiles vanished. The Jellybean Castle faded behind her like mist in the morning sun. She was falling, but slowly, softly, as if floating through layers of memories and lost dreams. She landed gently on a path made of gray gumdrops. Around her stretched a place without color. A candy world gone dull. Cotton candy clouds drifted above, no longer pink or blue, but pale and lifeless. Licorice trees stood bare, their leaves brittle and gray. And in the center of it all stood the boy. He faced a shattered mirror made of sugar glass, its pieces floating in the air around him. Each shard reflected not his face, but scenes from the castle, children laughing, candy creatures dancing, light pouring from the windows. But in each reflection, he stood alone. Mira walked toward him. Her footsteps made no sound. The boy didn't move. He had no name here, no story, just silence. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the jelly bean again. Its silver swirls sparkled faintly, even here. She held it out, her hand trembling. He looked at it, and then, slowly, painfully, he turned to her. His eyes were not cruel, they were sad, deep and ancient, like someone who had watched the stars go out one by one. He did not speak. But the air around him filled with the ache of a question. Why? Why had they stopped coming? Why had they forgotten? Mira understood. He had once been part of the castle's magic. Perhaps its very heart, a guardian, a dream keeper. But when the children stopped dreaming, stopped believing, he was left behind. His joy had curdled into sorrow. His wonder turned to shadow. He had become the darkness. Mira stepped forward again, slowly. She thought of how many dreams were forgotten as children grew older, how many stories were left behind on dusty bookshelves. But some still remembered. Some still came, even if only once. She pressed the jelly bean into his hand. It glowed, not brightly, not at first, but steadily, like a candle catching light. The boy's fingers closed around it. Suddenly, the mirror shards around them began to spin. The broken pieces trembled, then one by one began to melt into light. They turned into jelly beans, glowing softly, floating upward like tiny stars. A hum filled the air, faint at first, then stronger. It was the castle's song, the lullaby that had been quiet for so long. The candy clouds above them rippled with color. The gumdrop path brightened. The licorice trees bloomed with leaves of red, green, and gold. The boy looked up, his eyes wide. And then he smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small curve of his lips. But in that moment, the crack between their worlds sealed itself shut, and Mira and the boy were lifted together in a swirl of sugar light. The colors returned like a rushing tide. They were back in the great hall. The candy creatures blinked and gasped. The chandeliers blazed with light. The jellybean guards straightened. The stained glass windows pulsed with stories waiting to be told. And the boy, no longer shadowed, no longer lost, stood tall beside her. His cloak melted into a swirl of rainbow sugar, and from his shoulders burst wings made of spun glass feathers. The castle was whole again, but something had changed. Mira saw it clearly. A door now stood at the far end of the hall. A new one, made not of candy, but wood and starlight. A door that led to other dreams, other children, other castles in need. The boy turned to her. His eyes no longer glowed with fire, but with hope. He offered her his hand, and together they stepped toward the door. The castle hummed with joy. Jellybeans rained gently from the ceiling like confetti. A peppermint wind whooshed through the halls, dancing with laughter and light. Mira glanced back once. The Jellybean Castle stood proud, its towers glowing beneath the stars, its windows lit with dreams once more. The darkness was gone, but the journey had only just begun. The door made of wood and starlight opened without a sound. Beyond it stretched a path of glimmering stones, suspended in a sky of velvet black, speckled with stars that shimmered and swayed like fireflies in a midnight breeze. Mira stepped through first. The boy beside her, his glowing wings tucked close to his back. The door closed gently behind them, not as an ending, but a promise the magic was alive again. They walked side by side in silence, their steps echoing softly. Each stone they stepped on lit up for a moment, then faded, leaving behind only warmth. It was a path meant for dreamers, made from the forgotten glow of childhood wishes and the secret laughter of the wind. Far ahead, the path began to split into many trails, each one twisting into a different sky, a different dream. Mira pausji. She could feel the Jellybean Castle behind her, like a soft warmth resting in her heart. Its towers, once crumbling, now stood tall and proud. Its candy creatures had returned to their games. Its windows were alight with wonder, and the lullaby of its halls flowed freely through the world once more. But she could also feel something else. A gentle pull, a whisper in her chest that said this journey wasn't just about one castle. The magic she had awakened lived in more places, hidden forests, lost meadows, forgotten dreams waiting to bloom again. The boy turned to her. His eyes, now filled with light, no longer asked why. They sparkled with knowing, with thanks, with hope. He had found his way back, not through power or force, but through connection. Through someone who still believed. Mira smiled and gave a nod. They had a mission now. Together, they chose a path that curved toward a swirling horizon of soft clouds and distant laughter. As they walked, Mira noticed something strange and beautiful. Along the sides of the path, tiny doorways began to appear, doorways of all kinds. One was shaped like a storybook, another like a lantern made of dreams. A third looked like a tree hollow filled with golden light. Each door led to a place that had once been filled with wonder. Each one had gone quiet, dimmed by time and forgetting. Mira stepped closer to the first door. Her jellybean still glowed faintly in her hand. She held it up, and the door shimmered in response. Without needing words, she understood the magic inside her could open these doors too. Her belief could rekindle the worlds behind them. But this time, she wouldn't be alone. From the path behind her came a soft pattering of footsteps. Tiny candy feet, gummy creatures, licorice owls, and jellybean mice. They had followed her. Not just to say goodbye, but to help. One by one, they began to spread out, slipping through the other doors, carrying sparks of magic into the silent corners of forgotten places. They weren't guards anymore. They were gardeners of dreams. The boy, now glowing with golden sugar light, lifted into the air, his wings beating softly. He circled above Mira, leaving a trail of glimmering stardust behind him. She laughed, the sound clear and bright, and it echoed down every path, every sky, every hidden doorway. And something amazing happened. Far away, in the ordinary world, a child stirred in their sleep. A girl, tucked beneath patchwork blankets, dreamed of a castle made of jellybeans. She reached out in her dream, touched a gumdrop wall, and smiled. Another child, curled in the back of a quiet library, opened a forgotten book and blinked as a jellybean fell from its pages. A boy, gazing out the window of a crowded city bus, saw a swirl of color flash through the clouds, and his heart lifted for reasons he could not explain. The magic had begun to spread. Not loud, not fast, but true. Mira and the boy walked to the edge of the path, where the world rippled like the surface of a still pond. The stars above swirled slowly, and below them opened the first doorway. They would enter together a land of sleeping trees and dreams hidden in leaves. Mira took a breath, feeling both excited and calm. She stepped forward. And just before she passed through, She turned and looked back one last time. The starlit path was still there, glowing softly. The Jellybean Castle shimmered far in the distance, its towers bright as ever. And scattered through the skies and paths were tiny lights, flickering like fireflies. Each one was a doorway now opening. Each one, a story waking up. Mira didn't know how long the journey would be. She didn't need to. The world was wide and full of wonder. Some children still believed. Some just needed a nudge. And some were waiting to discover the door for the very first time. As the portal closed behind her, the sugar light faded into the stars. And in the gentle hush of midnight, a breeze whispered through the Jellybean Castle once more. Soft, sweet, alive. For in the heart of every dreamer, no matter how small or quiet, the magic was always there, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be found.